Kia ora, 1 of 200 listeners. Today we have a special episode of 1 of 200, and this episode is going to cover the student protests that are happening in India. Recently, there has been a massive development with the education minister stepping down. So the students and the youth-led movement has been called off for now. And so today I have an excellent panel with me. I have Sneha and Oscar, and I will pass it on to them to introduce themselves. But before we start, as an introduction, let me say for a long time, for the last 12 years, Indians have been watching politics with a lot of anxiety. We have seen where the country is headed. A lot of people who voted for Modi or supported Modi in 2014 soon understood that this was a mistake. Whereas for a lot of other people, it took a longer period. And I think that a number of thousands of people, in fact, millions of people who are now supporting this movement in India might be falling under that category, that they potentially have supported in the past, or they are coming from the environments. They were children in 2014, and coming into 2026, they are now young adults, the future of India. And, growing up in a very pro BJP environment. But the narrative of growth, of success, it's not really materializing into the lives of young people. And so a lot of young people have started asking questions. And, for a lot of us, it was um, the reckoning happened very quickly. For a lot of people, they already knew that this is a fascistic government that's going to fail. It's a neoliberal fascistic government and so forth. But we're seeing that there's more and more realizations happening. But even when all of this was happening, we were concerned that there isn't a formidable opposition to the BJP political class. And in 2019, we were worried even more because there was an absolute majority for the BJP in India's parliament. And in 2024, their majority has gone below the halfway mark, but they're still in power comfortably with the NDA alliance, which is the ruling coalition in India. But suddenly, we are seeing, sparks of hope. And what provides us this hope is the student-led movement, which is now globally known as, some people call it the cockroach movement. Some people call it a Gen Z movement. Some people are calling it a student-led movement. And I actually prefer that terminology. It's actually a student-led movement, but a movement which has brought together a lot of emotions of opposition towards the Indian government. And I do agree with Arundhati Roy's characterization of this moment as, this is the first time, or among the very few instances when we have felt proud since, 2014 May. So, there are other instances when we felt proud, obviously, when the farmers' protest was one of them, the anti-CAA protests were one of them, and now this moment. And, so to talk about what is this movement and, what are its implications, um, a deep dive into this cockroach movement. I have with me, like I said, Sneha. Sneha, can you introduce yourself?
Kira Koto. This is Sneha, um, PhD in sociology from the University of Auckland. And I have a lot of research background in researching Hindutva and anti-Hindutva activism. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years here in Aotearoa when I arrived here, and that's how we met Josephine as well. So, sort of looking at tendencies of Hindutva and how they have come into New Zealand, and also looking at what kind of activism that is being sustained in New Zealand by these anti-Hindutva activists. So that's what I've been studying. So I'm really excited for this conversation since we just had a protest in Auckland in solidarity with these students as well. So really
Yeah.
excited.
So how did that protest go?
Well, well, lots of things. So it was kind of like at the end moment we kind of decided was just not a lot of prep up to it. It was kind of spontaneous that, this is happening and we need to do it very quickly in solidarity. Um, so uh, we were sort of like gathering support, and there was sort of like a lot of support for this protest, like from a lot of Gen Z and a lot of people. But I think our protest was on Sunday, so that's yesterday, right? So, and Pradhan, so Dharmendra Pradhan, the education minister, as you said, already resigned that night before. So I think that stopped a few people from coming.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, oh, this is done. So maybe, the student protests
Mm.
in India have been stopped. They've already said the protesters can go back. So maybe it's not meaningful to do it here at this point, but we were really adamant that this is only the beginning. This is one
Yes.
little win in this bigger war against fascism. So we need to celebrate this, but we also need to continue demanding. And also, there are questions that haven't been answered. So there is the
Mm.
question of police brutality that CJP did not. There was not one of the demands that they put up as well of holding the police that who were doing this brutality against our students accountable. There's
Yeah.
also questions of Muslim protesters being targeted for religion. So Junaid, who's a person from Uttar Pradesh, where I come from, his family was particularly targeted. His family, his sisters, in-laws, which is insane. They were targeted. His family members were detained. So these things have not been answered
Yeah.
yet. So we
So as an
still wanted.
organ, yeah. So as an organizer of the Auckland protest, you saw that there was a purpose in keeping the protest on and to continue the struggle, but the announcement from India kind of dampened the
Yeah,
turnout a little bit, is
it
it?
did. It
Yeah,
did.
yeah. Okay. All right. Now we have Oscar, who was one of the organizers of the Wellington protest. Oscar, how are you?
Kia ora koutou. I'm Oscar. As I always say, I'm a communist and
From
uh,
Kerala?
from Kerala, of course. And yes, I did helped out in organizing a protest yesterday in Poneke in solidarity with the student unions and youth protesting in New Delhi for demanding a fair system of examination and various demands, including asking the people from the government to take accountability of the question paper leaks.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and
So how did the
as
protest go?
Yeah, it was good. It was a good turnout, and what I noticed, I have to give it a bit of background, Josephine. What I've been noticing is that that aura of Narendra Modi is fading within India. Uh, as time
Right.
goes, uh, it's not just uh, it's not just it's not just strengthening the opposition, but his aura is actually fading among his followers, hardcore Hindutva followers itself.
Oh.
What I first noticed is after the last general election when BJP was not able to secure single majority in in the parliament, and they have to depend on coalition partners. Not not silly partners. Those partners are like big guns, big
Yeah.
shots like Nitish Kumar, Chandrababu Naidu, who have been in the political arena way before Narendra Modi.
Mm-hmm.
So he is kind of at the moment working with leaders who once had the charisma, or or even above him. So that's kind of put him in a weakened position. But what going to say was, what I have noticed among the right wing ecosystem was, there was a call after the elections to bring even hardcore right wing leaders, like it's time to bring Yogi Adityanath.
Yeah.
That's yeah, Modi have done his work. Now he needs to take rest. You need to bring in Adityanath. If this Hindutva project needs to carry on, you need to have more hardcore hard right leaders. So that was there. And then with this protest, the youngsters forcing Dharmendra Pradhan to resign from the cabinet. It's not a simple thing, right? Dharmendra Pradhan is a outright RSS guy, right from his school days, his youth. He rose into ranks through RSS, through BJP student organization. He was, he rose into power, and he is an RSS guy. It's not easy for them to let him go, like bowing down
Yeah.
in front of those protests and agitation. That again, as far as the Hindutva followers are concerned, it again show a weakness in Modi's leadership, because they wanted this protest to be suppressed, by force, how they try to do during the Citizenship Amendment Act protest. They want to unleash the force and brutally suppress this. But unfortunately, the youngsters who were protesting there, many of the stories, what we were saying, they are the children of the people who voted for BJP into power. Even
Yeah.
BJP and its coalition partners' children are there chanting against Modi.
Yeah, I saw
So,
that. Was it in
so
Assam?
yes, yeah. So one of the coalition party
Partners,
leaders,
yeah, minister's daughter
minister's
was,
daughter, was chanting slogans against
yeah,
Modi. So definitely, it's hope. Uh, so coming back to Wellington protest, so we can see that effect of what's going on in India, and that transpires into the diaspora as well. So there were like a good turnout from the diaspora. Many of the people were not into activism or protest or anything like that. They just came to vent out their frustration, and anger, and uh, to the show solidarity to the youth protesting in Delhi. So it was good overall. It was a good turnout and good. It was a good. It went very well. Yeah.
great. So for our audience, should we give some background about what is this movement like? So number one in Spotlight is this very amorphous online social media kind of group called CJP, the Cockroach Janata Party. And the Cockroach Janata Party, the name comes from it's actually a satirical take on what the Indian Chief Justice of India's Supreme Court said about unemployed youth. So in one remark, he commented on unemployed youth as cockroaches. And here we have a person called, Abhijit Dipke, who is the person who started this Cockroach Janata Party account on social media. So just to remember, this doesn't have any organizational background on the ground. It was just on social media. He started this name, Cockroach Janata Party, and kind of owning it, right? Subverting the meaning and owning it and saying, yeah, we're the cockroaches and we will rise. And so that was only just a month ago, or just over a month ago. And then within a month, this party, or this social media movement, gets millions of followers. They have this manifesto, which I will talk about what are the key kind of hopes within that manifesto. Some of them are excellent, and some of them, generally just reformist. So you can say that it is a reformist liberal kind of conceptualization um, of the CJP. So it's not very radical, okay? It's not a very radical movement. Um, and then what was interesting is perhaps in its version, in that less radical liberal version, perhaps it's because of that it was able to attract this. It's got mass appeal, right? It's not providing, a very dense theoretical or, radical change. Oh, we want this, and this, right? Very simple reforms. But I think that one of the things that CJP does do is it identifies that there's something really wrong with the so-called democratic system that we have. And, we can, I feel like one of the big questions after this, as we evaluate this first phase, I'm just going to call it a phase of this movement, is the question of democracy itself, right? What is democracy? Does it exist in in the theoretical form that we love to glorify anywhere in the world? Because this idea of democracy that we have adopted in India is largely, adopted from the Western liberal democratic framework. So does it really exist? But even in its current iteration, we can see that it is being heavily undermined by the current ruling party through many means. So we saw, for example, the Bengal elections and how many people were removed from the electoral roll because of this kind of migrant politics and policies of the government, right? So it's actually very anti-Muslim, but it's like, oh, there's so many Bangladeshi immigrants in Bengal, and millions of people were removed from the electoral roll. And we found out that actually, when we do the calculation, um, what BJP won with on many seats is less than the number of people removed from the electoral roll. So people, young people are like open, awakening to this reality that actually this is not democracy, right? This is undermining of democracy is happening through one, those electoral roll changes. Number two, through this horse trading that BJP has been doing, right? So when in state elections, when it's close, BJP just buys MPs or threatens MPs of other parties to a point where they have to, change their alliance. And so one of the demands of CJP was to ban um, politicians from changing their party so that that doesn't happen. So there's a clear recognition that the democratic institutions and processes aren't working, and that there is certain manipulations happening, and the young people are awakening to it. And that was one of the key things I thought was hugely valuable, is that they're able to see that this system is not, scot-free. It's got manipulative elements in it. And this is not just about India. If you think about, for example, in New Zealand, they've made an electoral reform where you can't register as a voter until, last election, we could register on the day of voting. But now they've changed that, and that's going to affect particular demographics more. And that's going to disenfranchise people. For example, if they're moving neighborhoods, and their voting was in a different place, then they can't register. So it disenfranchises, for example, disproportionately renters, young people, and so forth. So this democratic system, model, it has so many problems. In the US, they do gerrymandering. And, in India, they're doing all these things that I've mentioned and more. And so that was one of the key things. So the democratic system not working, the education system heavily problematic, and inadequate for a country of the population of India, which is majority young people. Do you have any points to add, Sneha? I saw you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think there's lots of things to just add here. A few more complexities and how sort of like I want to give a little bit more background of how this movement became what it became, and like having sort of like millions of followers on Instagram to sort of having tens of thousands of people on ground. How did it happen? So sort of, yeah, as you said before, SAJI of India remarked as students as cockroaches, not just any students, but like people who are protesting or who are saying things against the government, unemployed, because they have nothing better to do. So Abhijit Dipke makes this remark sitting in Boston that can all cockroaches come together? And he just makes this as a joke, makes a website, makes an Instagram page, which blows up and gets followers more than the ruling party within a week. So that's already sort of, he was already channeling into this frustration of the youth, that they're already being failed by a system there which is corrupted. So there was something to be channeled through. And Abhijit Dipke lands in India, and then this sort of like sit-in protest goes in for 3 weeks, where we see activist Sonam Wangchuk sitting in solidarity with students, having this hunger strike for 3 weeks. And at the time, you would see there were not a lot of students who were coming into this protest. It was 300, 400, 500 students coming to Jantar Mantar. So that was happening around 3 weeks. And on the 20th of July, if I'm not wrong, when they actually forcefully, I would say, abducted Sonam Wangchuk from his peaceful protest and took him to the hospital forcefully. That's when it escalated and became bigger than what it was before. So that was a big
Yeah.
moment for the protest. And
Yes.
then uh, people who actually supported BJP or whose parents supported BJP, they started questioning it even more, that this person who's sitting in solidarity with us was being forcefully removed. And then there was this nationwide call and march to the parliament, and we see tens of thousands of people coming in from all corners of India, which was amazing. And we've been seeing so many interviews online, that how far they've traveled from. A lot of people are working class people, and they're like sleeping there. And we also see women there who are saying that we actually feel a lot safer around these protesters than in any temples. So that's huge, right? So there was this sort of event after 20th of July made this protest a lot bigger and massive. And things escalated pretty quickly after that as well. And we also see the arrogance of the prime minister, who comes on video or an Insta video for a minute and says that we are looking into this, we are going to fast track.
Friends.
Friends, we're going
Yes.
to fast track this.
Hello,
And
friends.
it's so hilarious. Anyway, and yeah, it was just so. And then he actually faces this pressure because he makes two videos back to back. A prime minister was not given a single press conference, makes two videos back to back at 12 o'clock at midnight. Say something about the power of students here. He's in immense pressure. But at
Yeah.
the same time, we also saw that it was a bit of a negotiation. They did not want Pradhan to resign immediately. They were saying that we've sacked these particular people, which was actually false information, because that many people were not even there in the permanent employees of the ministry. But they were trying to make compensations, and they've give consolation prizes to these students. But the students were adamant, and they held their ground despite being facing police brutality, so much hardship. They stuck their ground, and we see this resignation happened, which was also, there was no apology, first of all, in that resignation. We also see how the resignation was portrayed as a self-sacrifice, that I am stepping down because, there's this anti-national forces that are taking advantage of students who he thinks do not have the mental capability to
I thought he
understand.
said, I'm resigning for personal reasons. Isn't that what he said? That was
No,
hilarious. Like, he actually did do that.
yeah, it was a whole joke, and there was no apology. Even in his resignation, there was no accountability. He did not say sorry that I messed up. That's what he needed to say.
Yeah, yeah. And just to add to what Oscar said before, this guy, this education minister who's just resigned and under the pressure of this movement, he was one of the star fundraisers. This is a really important thing. Fundraisers, underline it, fundraisers for the BJP, which is,
Yeah.
you know, um, is basically undoubtedly the richest party in India. They are completely bankrolled by the corporates and, the richest people. Most people already know that this is a party of the billionaire class, and it's just the role of the party has been funneling India's wealth, India's resources, India's labor, all the value and for the the wealthy to accumulate. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's 100%. That's true. And also, just to add to that, I think Arundhati Roy already said that how this entire BJP cabinet and this entire government works as a cabal, and they know each other's dirty secrets way too much. So that would probably be one of the reasons, you know, Modi did not want Pradhan to resign initially. But I think the immense amount of pressure that was building up, and there were demands from Modi's resignation as well that was coming from students. And I think he was like, he got too scared at one point. He thought the movement will become bigger and bigger and the students are not going to leave, and he has to make this compensation. And and then we had that that half-ass apology and resignation from Pradhan, which undermine the capability of students, saying that they are like influenced by anti-national
yeah.
elements, which
So, so
is crazy.
Sneha, which of the demands have been met? Obviously, the resignation is a demand that they were, not wavering on. The another demand was compensation for the students for.
Compensation.
Did they agree to that?
They have agreed to all the demands. That's what CJP said and announced on their platforms. They also said there would be no legal cases held against students protesters. But yeah, I don't know what are the extent to which demands have been met,
Hmm.
or how is that being materialized as we speak, because I know there are like Muslim protesters who were attacked or who were targeted personally. So I don't know what's the extent of legal protection. I was also listening to Junaid's interview, was one of the people who was attacked, who CJP's legal team is working with him, but he still says that more needs to be done, and I wish they would do more, because I put myself online and I was there for all this time, and they should support me more. So
Hmm.
we also see a lot of, with personally through friends and the people that have gone there and put their bodies online, we also see a disappointment from our Muslim Fana and Muslim communities that we failed again and we've not been able to protect them. So that's also been one of the main criticisms of the movement, that they are the first people to face the crackdown, to face the police brutality. And we know that the people that were being sort of tracked and surveilled and sort of harassed were people from in areas, Muslim areas of Shaheen Bagh, Nizamuddin, Okla. So this has been ongoing. So I don't know what is the extent of those demands being met. Have the police stopped intimidating these people? I don't know. So they haven't announced that, but they haven't demanded accountability from police, which is something very big, and which was something that we've been at Auckland protest saying that that is something that has to be coming from CJP.
Yeah, and from what I've seen so far, there are still some students detained in police custody. In Bihar, I think there's at least one SFI leader
Hmm.
who's still in police custody. So there's a lot more for the government to do. And indeed, yes, so the compensation has been promised. So it's like this is when you think about the main demands, the government has been brought to its knees
Yeah.
and made to agree to the demands. Oscar, what were you?
I just want to add a few points to both Josephine and Sneha were talking. Josephine, you talked about democracy and how India's democracy has been backsliding under BJP, horse trading, corruption, electoral system, all those things. But I just want to add, it didn't started with BJP, right? So the Congress Party has a long history of they if BJP are kind of new into this. The Congress are kind of masters of political horse trading, and I'll give you one example. When the they terminated the first elected communist government of Kerala in and
Yeah.
democratically elected communist government of Kerala was. terminated within 2 years, 1959. The Congress government led by Nehru,
Yeah.
imposed presidential rule into the state, and
Yeah.
we can see a whole lot of other examples. So that's one thing that came into my mind. The Congress party are no innocent. Okay, and I like how Sneha said when the student protesters started asking for Modi's resignation, he kind of throw Pradhan under the bus. No, no, it's time to save my kursi, right? That's what
Yeah.
I think. I would like to add a bit more layer onto it. When the student protests were happening in Delhi, there was other mobilization happening in different part of the country, right? The farmers unions of Haryana, Punjab, and Kashmir, and all agitated and frustrated over unilateral. I will call it unilateral. There is no free trade agreement India signed with Western countries, including New Zealand, and there is negotiations of another free trade agreement with the United States is going on, and the farmers are very frustrated and anger, and they are already mobilizing. Right? This is what I think BJP doesn't want. Modi doesn't want the farmers to come to Delhi and join hands with the students, and it will go it will go massive. It will bring a class element into the protest. So that's where they were kind of, yeah, we have to contain it before it get out of the hands. We have to contain it, even if to sacrifice, in their words, to sacrifice Pradhan. Yeah, that's the way to go it. That's my observation around why they gave up on Pradhan. Yeah, and also about the protest. My my observation is that if you look at the exam, which has raised concern, the NEET exam, it's an entrance exam for the medical and allied other allied health courses. So annually, correct me if I'm wrong, about 2.5 million students aged between 17 and 20 appears this exam.
Yeah.
See, and they are contesting for about 130,000 medical seats plus 100,000 allied seat across the country. That's
Yeah.
all. That's government, public, and private sector colleges, all of
Yeah.
it, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at the total population of the people aged between 18 and 20 in India, it's
Yeah.
about 65 million, right? And a small chunk of,
650.
is it 650?
Yeah.
Yeah, six.
Wouldn't it
Sorry,
be?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is 650, and a small chunk of it that is appearing this exam. So this exam itself is exclusionary in nature.
Yeah.
You need to have a certain financial capacity to go for coaching classes for and need to have English education, English language education in your schools. This exam is in English, and then you go to have go for entrance coaching classes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, if you the more financially better off your family, you can do exams couple of more times. Maybe you can repeat it, even if you didn't got the rank what you wanted, you can appear in the next year. Sometimes people get in through after sitting the exam for 2 or 3 times. So you need it's so essentially this the most of the people who are attending this exam are from an upper middle class.
Yeah. So it's a small microcosm of
So
India's youth. Yeah.
yeah,
And
so that's so this middle class and upper middle class are the core voter base of BJP.
I just wanted to
Right?
add upper caste as well.
Yes, yes, that's right. Upper caste. That's right. Sorry, I'm sorry to miss that. That's yeah. Of course, it's upper caste and upper middle class
yeah.
families.
Yeah, privilege and caste are very, going hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's Yeah, when we
And
say, yeah,
yeah, and these people are the core voter base of BJP. So there's a whole lot of reasons why they want to contain, why they don't want to go into a violent repression, even though they went on for a couple of days of police brutality. But it
yeah.
didn't. We haven't seen what we have seen during the CAA NRC protest or
Mm.
during the Kashmir protest. That's so. It's also show the difference. When a Muslim, poor, working class Muslims protest, that will be handled in a different way by the state, and when the upper caste, middle class Hindus, or was majority Hindus, or people protest, how the state handles it.
Oh,
Yeah.
they got thrashed a lot. This group of young people, they did get
But we
so much.
didn't seen those, how, when you see the police brutality during the CAA and RC
Oh,
protest was
yeah.
like,
It was constant as well.
police and the RSS goons went hand in hand.
Yes.
They were
Yeah.
beating Muslim youths and making them to cry,
I mean,
Bharat Mata ki Jai, Jai Sri
it even
Ram.
it even led to a communal violence in Delhi.
Yes,
They, one BJP leader went during his election campaign. He said,
Goli
"Desh
Maro.
ki,
Yeah,
yeah,
देश के
desh,
गद्दारों को गोली
Goli
yeah,
मारो
yeah,
सालों को.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah." So it was like very open, calls for violence and all that. So yeah, it's not as horrific as the other movements that we've seen, and
And
it was
complete,
that
look
particular
at
day.
Kashmir, and look at Kashmir, complete,
Oh my
it
God,
got shut
yeah.
down,
Yeah.
and uh, media ban, and we didn't even know how the scale of
We
repression,
still don't. Yeah.
and it's still ongoing, so,
Mm.
Yeah.
and also the how this protest have gained support from the Western media. That's the one thing I would like to discuss, how,
Mm.
Yeah. Let's get to
and
it one by one. So I just wanted to add to the first point of Oscar is about how, this is a minority of students. Yes, it's true. So India, we shouldn't only be asking the question of, are we running this entrance exam in a fair way? The questions are far greater than that. Like, for a country of India's size, is it enough to have like 100,000 odds? These are public medical seats, by the way. The private ones, they can go and buy it. The rich people can buy seats in private, medical colleges anyway. So, this is not adequate. We need to be talking about expanding the capacity of India's medical education sector in the public sphere, not in private education. We don't want more private colleges. In fact, we demand this should, I'm urging, us to demand that we need to nationalize medical education totally in India, right? We don't want profiteering in the education sector. Why not we learn, take a page from Cuban model and see the density of doctors over there. Like India, we have a major crisis in terms of even primary healthcare is not available in India's villages, in many parts of India. So we have to think about expanding that. And when we expand that, that's gonna, have so many positive effects in terms of India's future opportunities. It's giving students education, but it will just improve India, develop and progress India in every single way, human well-being, but also economically as well. So it's not just a question of one examination. It's thinking about, and not even just medical education. We need to think about also education at every level, right? So these are the students that have reached and passed secondary school. So what about the students who are not able to access that level of education? Like me and Oscar, we're from Kerala, where public education is excellent and its coverage is universal. Whereas in many parts of India, it's like you can't even go. There's not even good public schools in primary level, let alone getting to NEET. Sneha.
Yeah, there's nothing like that, like not much public education in Uttar Pradesh. I mean, if even if there is, it's very subpar. So, I was privileged enough to go to a private school and attend private education and then go to a public university, Delhi University, which is like very, very important because I really, really believe that education must be public. Otherwise, we do what we're doing in the West is just this neoliberal capitalization of education where people think it's a service. And being an educator and having experienced that here in Aotearoa as well, where students think you're a service provider and this education is the service that you're supposed to provide, that kind of mentality only comes in where there is this sort of capitalism enters our education system. So it's really interesting. And I'm always for we need to scrap all these private institutes. We should only have public education. It should be free and universal for everybody, including tertiary education.
I agree. And so it is a question about India's, political economy, the kind of reforms that were imposed on India during the 1991 liberalization drive. It was, imposed by the imperial system, the IMF, where we get this huge, privatized education system where, instead of publicly funding, we are encouraged by these global institutions to privatize, to open up for foreign ownership and so forth. And so, yeah, these are questions that this is the moment to ask these questions.
And I just want to add one more thing. How the BJP has been full on with privatization of state institutions. The one of the reason is, yes, it's neoliberal capitalism as at play. One of the other reason is it essentially sabotages the affirmative actions, like affirmative measures guaranteed in the constitution. When you privatize, you don't have to maintain the affirmative actions like reservation, to maintain equal representation and equitable distribution. So you can kind of, once it's privatized, you don't have to. So BJP is the RSS is a Brahminical organization, which means oppressor caste, supremacist organization, and they will do everything in their at their disposal to maintain that societal status, and that's that.
Yeah,
I just want to add that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you just think about it, right? Like you have massive private players in India's education now, and they are making profits, right, from this burgeoning young population in India, aspirational young population. But then what? Like, just if you think about the political economic, logics of Western liberal democracy, which is, the model in India, these education institutions can easily fund a government that would support private education over public education. So you see how, essentially, capitalism is antithetical to democracy, right? So this is the thing, right? What we are seeing in India is the predictable outcome of you know the empire's actions on India, the divide and rule, and imposing this system is through IMF and so forth. Where we are is not a surprise. This is the predictable outcome of imperialism, of capitalism, and neoliberalism. So we need to ask those fundamental questions. Hopefully, we can ask them, as we go forward. The other point that Oscar brought up, excellent point, that I wanted to talk about was media, right? So media was really interesting because one of the key recognitions of CJP, and it came in their manifesto as well, was about the so-called Godi media. Sneha, you might be able to translate it better for us.
It's
But
like lap media.
yeah, so you're kind of like a lapdog, is it, for the
Yeah.
government?
Yeah,
Mm.
basically.
Yeah, so there's a recognition that India's media landscape, es- especially or particularly the mainstream media landscape, it's completely bought out by these billionaires and by the ruling parties, supporters. So these students and young people who were protesting, they completely rejected them. So when um, journalists from those media groups arrived at the protest sites, they were, not welcomed. They were, in fact, shooed away in many cases. But then we also saw right from the start of this movement, once it went viral, I've noticed that one of the first interviews I saw of this movement of Abhijit was in France 24, like a Western media group. Um, and they're all Western media is all interested in like, oh, this is a democratic thing. It's about India and democracy and all that. And, obviously, I am extremely suspicious of the intentions of Western media as well, because their track record is no better than the Godi media. These are media groups like BBC, including Guardian, BBC. All of them have went along with Israel's narrative, which supported the genocide in Gaza. They have largely historically always stood with Western foreign policy of colonialism, genocide, war, and all that. And so, we must always also see Western media with the same kind of suspicious lens, critical lens. And, how I analyzed it was as, they instantly understood that this could be a rising political force in India. And if that's the case, then the West needs to be in good terms with them, you know, if they do come to achieve political power. And what I did notice is the students actually if you see the comments under BBC and all that, the students are like, oh, the mainstream media was for a long time ignoring it in India, but your Western media's covering it. So, BBC is doing the work they did succeed in getting that goodwill. What were you going to say, Oscar? Sneha, I'll come to you soon after that.
So, Inish, at the beginning, Josephine, you said this was not a radical movement enough, right? There were no radical demands, being put out before the government. So I felt like that could be the one reason, Western media doesn't mind to
Mm,
support, show up there and, get the news out and show, made sure they present there as a supportive element, So if they were asking for demands like privatization, making nationalizing the education institutions, I wouldn't doubt the BBC will be there. BBC will be talking more interestingly, talking about some documents revealed the Chinese funding for this protest, or kind of they will be more interested in doing those news. Uh, I think it was my observation. It was not radical enough to push the Western media away.
right.
No, but we
Sneha.
should be. You rightly said we should be very suspicious about the intention of the Western media, and we see through them. We saw how they, how they legitimizing, continue to legitimize Israel's genocidal war on Gaza. How U.S. and Israel's bombardment of Tehran and other parts of the world, including Yemen and other states. So all imperial wars has been legitimized, as you rightly said. U.S. foreign policy. These are like the lapdogs of U.S. Imperialism, and we see through that, and we know that they are not the friends of the people of global South. They are not our friends.
In general, about the media, do you have any other comments, Sneha?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. Obviously, Western media is very suspicious and it plays into that stereotype of like othering the global South. And, you have this despotic leader in the global South who is doing undemocratic things in the global South, but it creates that, us versus the other when a person in the global North is sitting and watching these media narratives, thinking that this part of the world is undemocratic while thinking that the part that we live in is democratic and we have all these other freedoms. So it's kind of creating that, obviously the stereotype without doing the work of actually understanding how the revolution came around, it's intertangling with, globalization, and it's intertangling with capitalism and neoliberalization, which is like Western forces. So that was one thing. And then it was also interesting what the Indian media was doing, which I hadn't watched a lot because it's frustrating, but they were linking all of this to, they were confused, so they should come to a consensus first. They were linking it to different forces of our neighbors, so Chinese, some Bangladeshi, then there's like Pakistani forces.
CIA.
Yeah, then there's American influence. So they should just come to a consensus and talk in the same language, or the government should give them a circular that this is the foreign force you need to talk about, so that they could unanimously
Yeah, it
say that
was
this.
hilarious, right?
So
Like, so they were saying, oh, US, CIA, and China. And I'm like, pick a side. Which one are you talking about? And if it's the
And someone was
US,
also saying that, like, why should the US interfere here when
yeah,
Modi is doing everything what they want?
yeah,
When
yeah.
exactly.
Modi is buying fuel from wherever the United States is pointing to, and for, opening doors for all this, for companies, multinational companies to steal, and,
The
so
land
that's,
starting data centers,
yeah.
displacing Dalits and Adivasis in India. Modi is open to the US military industrial complex like, no other prime minister. I mean, other prime ministers, like you said before, Congress did start, the pro West direction of India, but Modi really cemented it to a point where we are asking the question, is India now a vassal state? So we don't need the students to be CIA. Modi's already pro.
I also want to sort of like commend students and talk about social media a little bit, how they created this alternate space for themselves. They use social media to talk about their own issue, and how also this protest became a site of joy, of laughter, of fun. It was a different kind of protest. Something was unprecedented. We haven't seen before. It wasn't the typical image of the protester who is struggling. It was that, but also the protester who is laughing, who is having fun, who is dancing. So, who's also making funny videos of the police, making satirical videos of the police. So, there is this element of joy, this particular sort of Gen Z element to the protest, and they reclaimed that social media space, which I thought was beautiful. And that's how most of us in Gen Z also got our first-hand news or first-hand videos of our friends. A lot of my friends went there, and that's how I got my information of them uploading those videos, because I know those things are true and they're honest. So I think them just sort of like connecting to their supporters directly, just giving sort of like saying goodbye to all these like mainstream and Western media perspectives and saying that this is our space to connect. I think that was really powerful, and that's how here in diaspora or sort of other parts of India or globally, how people resonated with the movement as well was through those reels, through the memes, through the fun. So that was a joy of this seeing this protest happening, and when they won, it seemed like we won as well because it was all happening in front of us and so close to us.
Yeah, and even though it started as a with some certain just liberal demands, or you could even argue that CJP itself, its demands are reformist or liberal. But when it came to the protest, it actually became successful through the presence of left student organizations like ISA, like the Student Federation of India, and other left organizations. Very conspicuously absent from it was the Congress's student wing, which is the KSU, wasn't there. But we saw that ISA and SFI and others actually joined along with Wang Chuk in his hunger strike. And they also were able to provide some direction with their, years of organizational skills and also their organizational apparatus to make it successful as we see it today. Oscar, were you going to say something?
Yeah, that's right. You rightly said organizations like ISA, SFI, AISF, and numerous other organizations were right there from the beginning. And we when we see those videos in Instagram, beautiful chants, very creative chants, and they were, as Sneha said, they were dancing, singing, and looking after each other. Some of the instances noted that was people from different parts of the country been sending food parcels. They were using these gig apps to book order food for the protesters, and food and water, making sure they have supplies. Those who
Yeah.
can't in person go and attend the protest were ordering food in Uber and sending it to. Yeah,
Mm,
so a lot of they were youngsters were basically using all the opportunities of technology and social media, and it's a huge setback for the BJP IT cell as well. BJP rose into the power with support of all social media platforms like Facebook, back then WhatsApp,
absolutely.
how they do their disinformation campaign,
Yeah.
and hatred towards minorities, and they mobilized through BJP, actually mobilized through Facebook and WhatsApp, and now their children are mobilizing against BJP through Instagram, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a big point. One of the biggest takeaways is that DJP has been defeated on its front, on its dominance in the social media space. This is, in fact, yes, it has been studied as well how social media was one of the areas where BJP was dominating, which spurred it into power. And this movement has actually unseated BJP from that dominance. So that's, yeah, excellent point there. Um, so yeah, we do see that the left movements had a prominent place there, and we did see that there were more and more radical elements coming in that movement, right? We see so many students. Obviously, one of the biggest figures that was present in terms of posters was B.R. Ambedkar. For the listeners of One of 200, they might not be familiar with B.R. Ambedkar. I will pass it to Sneha to talk about B.R. Ambedkar a little bit more, but also talking about some of the other figures were Che Guevara, right? Che is everywhere. Wherever there's a challenge to the system, you see Che's face. So more and more Che's were visible, but also India's communist revolutionaries who were executed by the British Empire during colonial period, Bhagat Singh and his mates. Their posters were everywhere. So yeah, Sneha.
Yeah, yeah. But just to give a preface to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, was the father of the Indian Constitution. He was the head of the drafting committee who wrote the Indian Constitution, known for his huge contribution to especially the Dalit community. He came from a low caste Dalit community, an extremely oppressed community of India. They continue to face violence and marginalization from the Indian state, which has escalated under the current government. So he's well known to be the leader of Dalit communities, but I would say he's the leader of India. He did a lot for women rights. He did a lot for workers' rights. Now we have 8-hour days, so that's something B.R. Ambedkar contributed to. So he gave us a lot of constitutional rights. So he became this figure of protest, of sort of like constitution, and then people, sort of students demanding and recognizing his place, that we have this constitution because this person did a lot of work to give us these rights. So now it is we have the privilege to exercise these rights. It is our democratic right to protest. So he became this sort of center. And obviously, we had other revolutionaries like Bhagat Singh. We had Che. Even yesterday's protest, we had Ambedkar, Bhagat Singh, all these revolutionaries side by side, who have contributed greatly to India. So, also want to make a important point, but brief. So Abhijit Dipke is Dalit. So it has been really like it's been a pleasure, immense happiness for me personally to watch me being Dalit as well, to watch that a student-led protest under the leadership of a Dalit person brought down an upper caste government, upper caste minister. So that has been really powerful, and the forefronting of Dalit voices in this movement has also been really powerful as well. But at the same time, we are also seeing some other dangers coming out as I'm speaking. I was listening to sort of like other Dalit creators talking about there's this social media debate talking about reservations now. So talking about how fair education systems must be without reservation. So there's this casteist sort of angle being taken within the student movement as well. I don't know if you've heard more about it, but it's been coming out and it's been said to be created by the BJP cell. But there's lots of people who've been now talking about using this platform of students to talk about like talk against reservations, talk against affirmative action, and spread a lot of casteism under the visage of supporting students. So, which is very paradoxical to me because this entire protest was like Ambedkar was the forefront of this protest. I don't know what you have to say about that, Josephine and
Yeah.
Oscar.
Yeah, that's really, it is indeed very powerful because that is, in fact, one of the key things that I noticed is the forefronting of anti-caste politics within it. Just holding, for example, B.R. Ambedkar's image itself is a confrontation because he called for the annihilation of caste. And, as a Marxist, reading B.R. Ambedkar, some of the things that, resonate with me are linking to land reforms, which haven't been,
Yeah.
which hasn't happened in most of India. You're right. So in Kerala, we had land reforms. Again, it was derailed to a great degree by these Savarna forces, the elite forces from the Hindus, Muslims, and Christians, the church being a key factor in stopping the land reforms from achieving its full potential in Kerala. So land reforms haven't happened. So this is the thing that hasn't happened in India, right? We didn't have a Mao who did a cultural revolution and destroyed the feudal system in China. We haven't had that in India. So this is one of the reasons why, we are still so behind China is because we haven't dealt with caste. We haven't dealt with caste-based land ownership in rural India. If you look at corporate India as well, you can see caste very clearly there.
Yeah.
CEOs and corporates and elites and all that. So unless we are addressing that, we can't really have we can't say it's a meritocratic system when it's feudal, when it is so unequal in nature. So it is a revolutionary politics that really needs to happen in order to address those issues. Oscar, did you have any thoughts?
I mean, like, I just want to talk a bit about Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So, right, earlier I mentioned that the BJP is or RSS is a caste supremacist, ideology. So the biggest threat, one of the biggest threat they see, on their way to advance their Hindutva project is the Constitution of India. So they often attack, through their policies. They try to bring, basically they are targeting the Constitution of India. That's why a lot of people see it's important to protect the Constitution of India. And that's where Dr. Ambedkar has been reminded back and back again and again. We have to uphold the Constitution. I have no I have no opinion that our constitution is 100% perfect or anything, but that's not my opinion. But that's the hope of people, that of people who are opposing this Hindutva regime. But yeah, so it's very it was so a pleasure to watch all these revolutionary figures. The youngsters were carrying the images and chanting, so that was great. And the other thing I also want to mention was uh, how the how do I say how the how the BJP is right now trying to say Sneha kind of said, they are saying that we don't want the
Affirmative
country
action.
to be torn apart. You know, like there've been funding from China, there's funding from Bangladesh, there's funding from Pakistan. I don't know whether Pakistan have or Bangladesh have enough funding to feed their own people at the moment, but that's a different story. I'm not going to for that. But what they're saying, they don't want the country to be torn up. That's the reason. That's the only reason we are this guy is resigning. Not we are afraid of, but I want to reiterate that this decline, this the beginning of the decline. It's not the beginning. The farmers' protest was the beginning of the decline of the BJP government, where they have to repeal the laws which they passed in the parliament, both houses of the parliament. When BJP had single-hand majority in the parliament, the farmers' unions protested and forced the BJP to repeal the anti-farmers bills, and then the last general elections again show the decline in Modi's popularity and popularity of the BJP, and now the children went in and protested and uh, bring the government into their knees. So definitely BJP is in decline, Modi is in decline, but what's next? I have no answer. Like,
Yeah.
if it's going to, is it going to be a radical change? I don't have answer. I don't see a left as a formidable force or anything at the moment, or but the ideology is valid, the organizational capacity is valid. Whether they have the strength to translate that into vote, I doubt that, because unfortunately it's a liberal democracy and money wins, right?
Right, yeah. So is that your takeaway? I was gonna ask at this point, just to, as a conclusion, what are the key takeaways? That sounds like a takeaway, a
Yeah.
big question mark, because the system is liberal democratic, and you can basically, you know, f- donate to political parties, and they become very dominant through all kind of mediums we can imagine, right? Through news media, through social media, and all that. I mean, they have been defeated there, like we just
Mm,
discussed that. So, I mean, there's always shoots of hope, right? Revolutionary
mm.
optimism. Um, what are your key takeaways, Sneha, from as a conclusion? Because we have been chatting for a while. We can go on for ages.
Yeah, I know. I am actually really hopeful. For the first time in so many years, I've been feeling really, really hopeful. I want to congratulate all the students of India. I was crying when this happened. I was really emotional. So I am feeling hopeful. I hope the tide shifts, and I'm seeing more and more, you know, people who were more like sort of right and BJP supporters being like their eyes being opened after their own children got shot, which is really bad. That, now that it's the fire in your own house, then you're opening your eyes to see fascism. But now they are finally. So, there is this shift of tide slowly happening, and it's really like, yeah, it's just powerful to see and witness. This is a moment in history as well. So, I'm hopeful that, this tide shifts, and we have a democratic election in 2029, and then we have a change in government. We have a strong opposition. We have all these things. So it's just me being hopeful. I had lost all the hope before this. So, yes. But at the same time, I also see Oscar's point, and I know that how powerful the current government is, and what's their they obviously they hobnob with the corporate, and they have this nexus with Adani and Ambani, and how much money they have, and how they can influence the vote. So I am concerned about that, obviously, but I'm just trying to um, have this little spark of hope, and just wish the government changes
Mm, right.
this final time.
Any other
I
takeaways,
just want to
Oscar?
ask you, Josephine, one
Yeah.
question. So what we have seen in South Asia in the past few years, there have been mass movements in Nepal, there have been mass movement in Bangladesh, there have been mass movement in Sri Lanka, where which accompanied with a change of government, or in case of Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they have to flee from the country, right? So how do you see, India with these all these uh, mass movements happening in the close proximity of India. How do you see what's the scope of that in India?
Well, this is so interesting because, like, during the protests, I saw that the opposition, the BJP, and that I don't know if it was their demonstrators or whether they did some weird counter protest which nobody attended, and they were saying India is not Nepal. India, did you see that? India Nepal nahi hai. India. So, I mean, there is this notion of Indian, kind of Indian special, we are special in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't want to call it exceptionalism. Maybe it is. But India is this big brother nation, right, in this region. So every other country you mentioned, Bangladesh, used to be East Pakistan. It was part of the partition of the subcontinent. Obviously, the partition was part of the, you know, plan of balkanizing South Asia so that we would not become a formidable challenge to the capitalist empire centered in the West, right? So, a little bit of that balkanization they already did. Um, whether that can happen in India, like as a real revolution or something that's happened in Bangladesh, it's not really clear to me because what's happened is it's almost like people closer to the West are now in power, right? In Bangladesh and all that. So, I yeah, I'm not really sure that's a good thing. Um,
I was not saying it's a good thing, or I'm not.
oh,
I'm say I was. The question was whether a mass movement can replace the current government. I don't know. I'm not saying
can
it's going to
it?
be. It will be a positive thing, or I don't know. What do you see in India at the moment? What's the situation like?
Well, India, India's not, it is a formidable power, as a state, right? It's got this massive state apparatus. We saw all the different forces that were deployed, various different forces, and that's not even, the tip of the iceberg. There's a really powerful state. And so whether people can do, of course you can. You saw what the students could do within a few weeks, right? What they achieved is amazing. So you can, but it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy to do that in India. And yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you,
But
Joseph.
yeah, yeah,
That's
no worries.
yeah.
So as a takeaway, I wanted to talk about, I've been affected by this flu that's been going right throughout the motu out. Everyone I talk to seems to have gotten flu. We are going through some of the most miserable moments in winter, the coldest parts in winter and so forth. And one day I was sick, I took a leave and I was watching this protest from the morning to the evening. And the energy is just like, like you can be anywhere in the world, right? But when people organize for towards a cause and they come together and they gather on the streets, not online, but on the streets, you can feel it regardless of which part of the world you are. The energy is palpable. And the lesson that I learned from it is we have to mobilize, right? We have to organize and we have to mobilize. We have to learn from the mistakes of, if there were any mistakes in this movement, learning from it, how can we deepen it? How can we make it more radical so that it's not just a question of need, that is a question of education guaranteed for every child in India. It's a question of building India's capacities, looking at China as a model, not at West. The West is a failure. The West is decaying, right? The West has all these problems of homelessness, of all these other issues where most of the economic might is being thrown into military rather than into actually solving the problems in the West. So we need to look at different models of development and actually think about the problems facing India, which is massive problems, right? So fundamentally, for example, annihilating caste, how do we do that? How do we make Indian education system all encompassing and available for universally? So these questions need to be asked, and I think the students are already asking it. And I see the shoots of hope there. And another key takeaway is for the last 12 years, I didn't feel that there was a real opposition, but these students felt like, an opposition is forming up. And again, another thing that was clear to me was that Congress is not capable of leading an opposition. They did not even show up to the protests until it became really, ignorable, right? Once it was completely not ignorable, that's when they showed up. After the Lathi charges and so forth, they came on that day or after that day, but
You know
very
what
late, and
the
we,
Chief Minister of Kerala said about being attending the protest when he was asked by the
yeah,
journalist.
he
So
said
he
he went
went to
to
the
Delhi.
protest with Rahul Gandhi, the opposition leader. So when the media asked him about his attendance, Sadishan said he didn't know that he was going for a protest. He was called to Delhi to attend birthday party of the Congress president.
Yeah,
I
so
think I
that
appreciate Rahul Gandhi going to that extent. You know, he had to create a prank to get these people to attend the protest. You know, come, let's have a cake cutting ceremony and celebrate the birthday of Khargeji.
So this just shows the lack of ability of the Congress party to be an opposition, and also shows perhaps why, this force called BJP rose with such prominence in India. It's also not just, everyone becoming a fascist. No, it's also the failure of the centrist liberal consensus that was ruling India for 7 decades, and people having enough of that and trying something different, right? So it's a failure of that, and they're not really shifting their policies or their political trajectory in order to actually become an alternative for BJP. So really, we need to look elsewhere for the opposition, and this student-led movement was giving me hope in that sense.
You know,
Sneha, any other?
India have tried right wing and liberal politics for last 77 or 80 so years. Now it's time to give a chance to the communist.
Yeah.
Right? You need to
I
Oh,
think
actually
that
see
would
a
be
left wing. You
amazing.
need to see a left wing
yeah.
government. You
Yeah,
know?
100%. I think there were radical demands within the movement, and we saw the left coming together, ISI and SFI. We had that theoretical sort of framework. We had sort of like understanding of the radical demands there, and we saw pockets where they were asking for those radical things. But I think since the CJP, again, the demands were, we can criticize them that they were liberal and they wanted to cater to a certain number of people or certain group of people, or they wanted to get more people. So they were not that radical. And that's how they also got that many people and they were able to push for that reform. But within those, it was obviously, it's called a CJP led movement, but I would say it was a student led movement, as you said before, Josephine, because CGP was there, but again, the ground reporters say that it was massively unorganized. There were students in different pockets doing different chants, and there were different demands. So there were demands from resignation of Modi. The people were also talking about Modi's relationship with Israel. So there is demands of free Palestine. We also see a lot of different kinds of demands of women's safety. So we all of that was there within the movement. So I feel like if the education minister, I mean, sorry, the education minister resigned, but if they continued the struggle, we might have gotten more.
Hmm.
So
So are
I
you a
don't know.
little disappointed, Sneha, that they
I
called it
was,
off?
yeah, I was. I was a little disappointed. I was looking as this happened. I was like all over social media, looking at their accounts. What are they saying? What are they doing? And they called it off. And yeah, it was a bit disappointing. I thought they will actually push for it.
And
Yeah.
Oscar, did you feel disappointed when they called it off?
I mean, like, to be honest, I was not disappointed because, you know, they put out definite demands, right? We kind of discussed it again. They were addressing a particular set of things, and they put out definite demands in place. So once the demands have been, achieved, they have to
Mm.
withdraw the protest. I
Right.
mean, like in the first place, we can criticize. I've been critical about their demands in the first place.
Mm.
So they put demands which are practical,
Mm.
and possible. Like
And they
Yes.
achieved it.
they achieved it.
So that's pretty remarkable that they had very definite demands and they made the government do that. So that's pretty impressive. But I too was quite, disappointed because we want more, obviously. But at the other, I also wanted to say that what the government is hoping also is that this movement dies down at this point,
Yeah.
right? That the moment that the resignation, even before it was announced, the police were apparently there saying, now it's time to go. It's time to go back home. No more protest here. Get out of the way. And that, they just they want this protest to die down. Our role in the diaspora, and this is the thing, right? This was, sparked by a diaspora student or a diaspora Indian like us. So our point, we also have we have some contribution to make, is to keep that spirit and that flame alive, and to ask, deeper questions as to why only so many students can make it, and how come so many students don't have education, and how come the wealth inequality in India is like this, how come 10% of, upper caste Indians own 40% of rural land in India, how come 10% of Indians own 76% of the wealth in our country. Once we ask those questions, perhaps at some point, we can in fact um, take back the reins of power and give it to actually where it belongs, which is the people, the working class, the majority. Oscar, were you going to say something?
Now, I just want to say that I hope it doesn't die down. And you when you organize, you do things, you come around and you meet people, you make friends. It's easy to organize, reorganize, and come back. When you make those, create those networks and contacts. And I think we really need to watch out for the space. As I said in the beginning, the Indian farmers are mobilizing. They will be heading towards Delhi in coming weeks,
Mm,
when it's more close towards the conclusion of the FTA negotiations with the United States. And the government has been acting very suspicious. They are not giving out any details. They're not with all the FTAs, even with the New Zealand FTAs. They didn't table it to the parliament. They didn't had any discussion with the in the parliament, and also, like, they didn't had a discussion with the farmers unions before going and signing the FTA. And
mm.
people are really agitated. We have to
Yeah.
watch the space.
Yeah, and so that was a special episode of One of 200 podcast. Today we talked about the Indian protests, and so I hope you enjoyed this episode, the special episode. I do want to conclude by just remarking on the hope that this movement provided us. I thought that one distinct aspect of it was the secular nature of it, the fact that it resisted. I didn't really see any element of it that sided with Hindutva. Rather, it was holding India's constitution, which, says India is a secular, socialist, democratic republic. So, victory to that movement and victory to, the radical students of India. Thank you very much.
And victory to the people.
Like, I